Hello, my name is Beth Babel, and I'm the Executive Director of ITGA. Welcome to the April Collaborative Community Conversations webinar series from ITGA for Spring 2026. We are delighted to have participants joining us from across the United States and Canada, which reflects the interest in today's topic of more than a building, using hospitality, industry partners, and education to drive community economic impact. This session will be recorded and the PowerPoint will be distributed to attendees after today's webinar. Please put your questions you have in the Q&A, which will be answered at the end of this session. Today we are joined by experts from Texas A&M University who will discuss how industry-aligned education and public-facing partnership can advance regional economic development. Our moderator for today is Chris Ann Osterby, an ITGA board member who also participates on the Professional Development Committee, co-chaired by Ian Murray and Sally Lanowski. Chris Ann Osterby is a campus planning leader at DLR Group. Chris Ann, thank you for helping to put this webinar together, and we open the floor to you to introduce our speakers.
Thank you very much, Beth. I'm very excited to bring this group of panelists and all of their information and experience to you today. If we can start the presentation, and we'll go to our slide that introduces us, and we'll very quickly move into the rest of the content so that we are able to save as much time for your questions and points, conversations, and discussions at the end. So again, just to be clear, I would have loved to have been a part of this project. I've been hearing about it for years and I'm so excited, but I've not been personally involved. But I know enough to be dangerous to know that this is such an important topic to ITGA, to higher education, and to communities everywhere. These are the questions that I experience in my work campus planning around the country that people are asking, and that we really want to promote for ITGA members as a resource to bring to you the best practice and case study of how this can certainly transform the culture and the impact of learning, recruitment, and intention for an institution, but just as important, can really cement the best of community relations and prospering and true resiliency and sustainability, whether you're an urban institution or a rural institution. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Emily Winters. She is a leader within higher education within the region that Texas resides in within the United States and across the state of Texas. She has direct personal relationship to this project, has been a leading architect and project manager for this. And again, we'll be really focusing on the aspects of physical importance of place and of form and responsibility to context, to the really setting of this program to welcome both the students and the community together physically and find a home here. Austin Fannin, who will lead us off in this presentation, really was there to birth this project. He's a director of strategic program development within the Office of the President at Texas A&M and continues to be intimately involved in really bringing the best partnerships together in the programming so that the vision that started is continuing through construction today. And certainly Kelly Hollinger, last but not least, will really dive into the importance of this facility to visitors overall, not just to the student visitor, but to the community visitor, so that this is really a primary welcome center, not only for folks who are just there experiencing the richness of the campus, but are thinking about family and students coming and creating commitments to the institution, but alumni to come back. And again, that also excites partners as they come forward. And again, building with Austin, Emily can be fully represented not only today, but decades into the future for programs that we can't even imagine as this area of Texas, the region, and even this demand for education transforms into the future. So with that, I will turn it over to the group and be happy to be looking and hopefully translating your questions over to the group particularly at the end of the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris Ann, and howdy, everybody. Great to have you here with us. I'll give us a little intro on the project and then pass it off to the rest of the group. But you'll see a lot of information right here. We'll get into some of that further on down the presentation. But Texas A&M is a powerhouse institution by size, by research standards, and other academic measurements. But we're really trying to avoid the ivory tower label by really integrating the community and industry into the fabric of the university. On the next slide, we can see that we are trying to do town gown integration through three strategic areas. We're doing that through workforce alignment, through strategic industry partnerships, and through visitor economy and tourism. Again, we will talk more deeply in each of those throughout this presentation. Universities no longer have students learning solely from books until graduation when they enter industry. The most successful institutions integrate partnerships and hands-on experiential learning throughout their educational journey. That connection becomes symbiotic, benefiting everybody involved. It's good for the students, it's good for the community, and it's good for industry. Diving into the project we're talking about, it's a building on our campus that is called the Aplin Center. And I'm going to talk about how this very unique project came to light. We had a number of things happening at the university, and we really had the leadership and the vision to bring them all together with the right partnerships. So at that time, we had some industry coming to us in the hospitality sector looking for more leadership coming out of the university. And so we decided to change our recreation parks and tourism sciences department and major into a hospitality, hotel management and tourism major, and really focus more on leadership and business in that area. At that same time, we had a vision for more experiential learning, more hands-on learning, especially in programs in hospitality, food production. We have some great food production programs like barbecue in our meat science department, and coffee making, and some things like that that really needed to be experienced. And we were playing with some ideas about bringing it into our downtown of our local city, or having another way for the community to engage with that. At the same time, we realized our university had too many closed buildings. If visitors came to campus, they could go to our student union and our football stadium, but they really couldn't see students actively learning and really couldn't engage with that learning. And so we wanted to change that. And then the fourth piece that came together is we were workshopping these concepts together and kind of how they all fit together. And we worked with a former student who was interested in giving back to the university, and that was from the founder of Buc-ee's, is a former student of Texas A&M University. If you are familiar with Buc-ee's, it's a phenomenon sweeping the nation where everybody stops and it backs up traffic on every road trip. But it is a full-on experience and considered just a hospitality destination. It's not just a gas station. You go there and you experience everything from amazing restrooms to performative cooking and everything in between. And so he really wanted to get back into giving back to the university to teach hospitality, food production, and really connect them all, and a little bit of entrepreneurship too. And so that connection and putting all those different things together was the beginning of this vision. What we did with that idea and that concept is went out with kind of an all call to figure out what fit that vision. So we didn't start like many buildings on university campuses and say, we have this program in biology that needs a new building, we're going to build a new biology building. We had this concept and we want to figure out which programs fit within the concept. At that time, before the gift agreement was signed and named after the Buc-ee's founder as the Aplin Center, which it is now known, the working title was Operation Funhouse. So that tells you a little bit about that vision. We wanted that to be the welcoming place on campus, where everybody wanted to be, where everybody wanted to check in, whether they're a student currently or from the community, or a former student coming back and hasn't been here in years. They wanted to stop by and see what was happening. And as we went through that process, we reached out to a number of different programs and figured out and asked them what they thought would fit in here. We got a lot of interesting ideas. Like I mentioned, programs that have a lot of success already and maturity, like our world-renowned barbecue programs, coffee and wine making. We also got some really interesting ideas, such as mini golf courses, dog food testing, leather making, and we even went through this project for a while with an apiary with live bees inside the building, and then we ended up eliminating that for obvious reasons. We really kept with that vision and wanted to make sure that the programs fit. It wasn't a building with a bunch of parts, and we could have the sum of the parts be greater than just the individual parts. And so we wanted to make sure the programs fit with each other. Each program could overlap multidisciplinary with each other. You could learn about something in one area and then have students in hospitality learning about it in the restaurant, or in marketing learning about it in retail. Um, that we could have programs and activations that would really elevate each of these programs as a betterment to all of them. So we went through and we selected the programs that fit best, and we were narrowing it down going through this process. One important thing to note is part of the help of that process, I'm calling it help now, but many of you may have gone through this, is we had a leadership change. And that made us step back from the leader who initiated the project and say, what is really our priorities, not just for this project, but for the entire university. And that can be challenging and can derail projects. But because we had that vision, we were able to step back and actually improve upon this project. We went through some other exercises at a university for what we needed for student experience, for infrastructure, and what other projects we had kind of in the hopper from a building standpoint. And that led us to add more classrooms to get more students in here, to change the programming a little bit, and also to add our visitor center, which at the same time was looking at a new building, a standalone building. And we were talking about this project as being the place that everybody wanted to be, that was welcoming, that everybody wanted to stop to, and it made so much sense that the visitor center should be part of this, and it really changed the project for the better. So that was a really good lesson that we learned from that leadership change, to use that to our benefit instead of to our detriment.
So as Austin discussed, the Aplin Center was conceived back in September of 2022. So this has already had quite a lifespan, has gone through the changes that Austin mentioned. And we're going to talk about how this building is planned. Where it is today is we are 6 months into our construction period, and we've got about 2.5 years to go. It is a 200,000 square foot building. It is a mix of mass timber structure, concrete structure, and steel, because of the different programmatic needs. So it's a complicated from an architectural standpoint as well as from a programming standpoint. But we will be having A&M and all these programs move in July of 2028. So even as the program did evolve and, had its own journey, the location of this project has been very intentional from the start. I think it was identified very early in the progress. The master plan always had called for a very impactful building on this site. Today, it is a parking lot for the most prestigious during the football games, because it is right at the entry point of our West Campus for A&M. So the main campus has been the historical center of activity, is the 100-year plus portion of the campus. But as the university has grown, there has emerged this West Campus, and it is home of two of the largest colleges on the campus, both the business school and the AgriLife college. But it's always kind of lagged behind on having the programmed green spaces. It's had fewer eateries, less iconic landmarks, less in interconnectivity on that portion of the campus. So it's really is the focus of A&M's most recent master plan, is how to bring equity to the West Campus, how to even change the mindset of it isn't West Campus and Main Campus. Can it be West Campus and East Campus? And the Aplin Center and its program and the way that it's trying to welcome in the community, as well as the amenities and programmed green space that happens around this building, it's been an obvious fit. So the building itself, it really is the program that sets this project apart. As Austin mentioned, just the way that the university went about programming it, and it's being very mission-based as opposed to university need-based as the first priority. Caused for a really interesting intersection, and as a lot of people on this call probably know, interdisciplinary buildings are becoming more and more prevalent on universities. I think typically they kind of are more shared space that is controlled by a provost, or they might just rely simply on program adjacency that create the interdisciplinary aspect of the building. This one really goes beyond that, and is really about the starting to bring together these multiple colleges to mimic the collaboration that is required in the workforce. And so that means that it isn't just the architecture that is interdisciplinary, but it is the curriculum that's interdisciplinary that results in needed adjacency in the architecture. So the end result is 9 different departments integrated inside this building, with multiple colleges and the Division of Enrollment Management, which is our visitor center and admissions center, and 11 experiential learning labs, which I'm sure breaks records on A&M's campus of hands-on learning. So how this kind of plays out and mimics the pipeline in education is that you have all of the different components of the school. And I feel like the best way to really orient you in how this is playing out is kind of to tell it in a case study of how this is going to work in the coffee center. So today there is a coffee center on A&M's campus. They do produce coffee, but they are roasting and producing coffee in a silo, right? They're going, oh, it would be really interesting for us to use this bean, and let's research this component. And all of that's really interesting, and there's a lot to be learned from that. And then across the street, we have in the Mays Business School, you have the entrepreneurship classes, the marketing departments, and they're all going through their own exercise using made-up case studies of, let's look at research for this product of coffee and what would market it better? What are the different products within coffee that have a higher demand? But they're doing that in a silo. And then you have the retail and hospitality programs, and they are looking at the retail data of coffee, and they're doing their own mimicked case study of what would happen if we made this change. How would that change the end result? So all of this learning is happening, but all of it's happening in its own silo, and it really forces a lot of not real life data, but using case studies and using, hypothesizing. And so what this program and this building is doing is now it's going to be in the real life data loop that is the collaboration needed in industry. Coffee no longer gets to go, oh, I think it would be really interesting to study beans from Chile and let's roast that. Well, those decisions are going to be made in the real life constraints of now the marketing group going, well, actually, we're not seeing a lot of, demand for coffee. How can we change and build that demand? Or is there an avenue to do that? And so now they're going to influence what coffee creates. And then at the same time, once that coffee is created, marketing is going through their effort, and it's actually going to be delivered in the retail centers that are part of this project. We have coffee retail, we have a bookstore for selling the actual beans, and then we have a restaurant. So they can deliver these products that are being made by the students, and then they can look at that actual data and then back through that loop. Now they can go, okay, we didn't meet the marks that we thought we could. And marketing can go through the process of, oh, I think we should do this, or we should change this product. And the AgriLife group can say, well, that would be great, but there's no way under this time constraint we could actually do this. And so now they're having to live within real life loop and collaboration so that they really hit when they graduate, they really know how to plug into the real job that they're preparing for. From an architectural standpoint, we do know the industries that have the demand today in alignment with the university. So we have built these experiential labs. We have a dairy lab that will be making ice cream and soft cheeses. We have a coffee lab. We have meat that is going to be doing dry aging and sausage making. We've got enology, which is wine making. We have fermentation, which will be kombucha and different beers and fermentation products. And we have floral design. So the pathway I just described is happening within all of those programs. But we also had to design it because we know that this is an incubator of sorts. So if enology, which is a new program at A&M, at least from a producing product standpoint, if that really grows and becomes as big as that program views Texas winemaking to become, they might need to grow out and become their own building or find more space. And that lab needs to be flexible enough that whatever is the new demand, in the same way it might be that Texas winemaking ends up not hitting the mark they need, and there's a new big demand within food and beverage. So we've really tried to think ahead, providing infrastructure that's incredibly adaptable, so that they're very heavily branded. They have lots of visibility into the labs, but we've designed those in a way that those can be interchanged and changed over the 100-year lifespan of this building, so that it can evolve with industry.
Public-facing spaces in Aplin are really central to the educational experience. It's unique to this facility and a major step for Texas A&M to invest in. Why, you might ask? In a university, spaces like cafes and stores can get cut from building projects because they're not labeled as classrooms. That means they may not align with tuition dollars and usual higher education funding priorities. The vision of Aplin is different. Here, the event spaces are intended to engage the community. They will host corporate gatherings. The restaurant will generate modest income. The retail store that you just heard more about will be a destination for visitors to buy unique products. And the visitor center is positioned to be a new front door, both of the university as well as a community welcoming point. Overall, what we're trying to communicate is that the larger purpose of the Aplin Center is to drive broader economic impact through sales, employment, and as a tourist destination. So that means these public-facing spaces are essential to the building's success. They're not extras. I was thrilled to learn that the visitor center was going to be moving into this incredibly dynamic space. Currently, we are operating out of the ground floor of a 52-year-old building on campus. But as you can imagine, in that long history, demand for our services has far grown what the physical constraints of the facility can accommodate. For reference, when Texas A&M joined the Southeastern Conference in 2012, we were hosting about 28,000 guests. Today, that number has almost tripled. That means that our current first impression of the university really isn't reflective of our institution's size and overall impact on the state and nation. Now, when we move to Aplin, our journey is going to be very purpose-driven. Prospective students are really part of who the audience this building is being thought of. And we're being very intentional about what is that welcome experience. When visitors walk into the new space, they'll see a branded wall with a bold howdy. That is the official greeting of Texas A&M University. Guests are going to walk through a hype tunnel featuring digital walls showing high energy videos of student life, athletics, and campus traditions. So we're building excitement into the space for students to learn about Texas A&M. So ultimately they can find and discover how they belong at the university, and they can choose to apply. What's going to be different about our storytelling in this new space, going back for a bit more, is that our location is really integrated into the academics of the space. Here, students are going to be able to envision how they're going to learn. We're going to be adjacent to labs, design studios, and student-run businesses. Within the space, a lot of the architectural elements intentionally build in large windows to allow visitors and others to observe learning in action. And so this is really critical to delivering on the donor's vision of ensuring that Texas A&M students graduate workforce ready to be leaders in retailing, hospitality, and horticulture. The Visitor Center also aligns with the purpose of Aplin because we, in fact, are an economic driver. My team is really proud that for the impact of visitors coming to the Bryan College Station area, and I'll show these metrics on the next slide, that we annually welcome about 80,000 guests for an immersive introduction to Texas A&M University. While the university is located in the heart of the Texas Triangle between Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio, making us about 3 hours within 70% of the population of Texas, the vast majority of these 80,000 visitors drive 60 minutes or more to campus. So with that time investment, many are staying locally and spending money. By the numbers, 40% of our family unit visitors report staying overnight. 11% of these guests, in fact, report staying 2 nights or more. With tours operating Monday through Friday, that means most of these guests are staying overnight Sunday through Thursday, nights with typical lower occupancy rates and off nights from major weekend athletic events. By gathering these metrics, the Visitor Center has been able to establish meaningful partnerships with our local DMOs. City tourism officials have been really pleased with the occupancy lift of campus visitors, and it's clear how the campus visit enhances the local visitor economy and is a match for the goals of the Aplin Center. In addition to running the Visitor Center, I'm also now a new graduate student in that newly named Department of Hospitality, Hotel Management, and Tourism, and can speak firsthand to the new corporate partnership program the department head, Dr. Brian King, has established that benefits student learning and serves as a pipeline to talent for the industry. This new corporate group of 30 companies provides a steady stream of executives to share time in the classroom. They guest lecture with students about current issues and are collaborating actively with faculty to enhance the curriculum. These firms are readily available to help students with research projects. Personally, one of the highest impact learning experiences I've already had as a graduate student was a one-on-one with an HMGT board member, Emily Knight. She's president of the Texas Restaurant Association, the legislative advocacy group that represents 58,000 restaurants and employs 1.5 million Texans. Enrollment in this department has in fact doubled in the past 3 years. So by building strong partnership with firms like the Texas Restaurant Association, as well as with local and national hospitality organizations, both students and employers are really going to benefit. Students gain practical experience and clear pathways, while employers get that access to a prepared pipeline of talent. Next, we're really focused on community engagement. Already, you've heard about the highly popular ways that we'll serve non-students through activities like Camp Brisket and Barbecue Summer Camp. These classes are exactly what they sound like. Meet science educators along with celebrity chefs, teaching the public how to become barbecue experts. Other activities that are already on the books include the Department of Horticulture's Spirited Learning, a monthly session that profiles wine pairing and tasting with food samplers, as well as brief opportunities for learning from local producers. It's incredible to see the mix of current students that are often enrolled in the wine appreciation classes, interacting with local wine producers, pecan growers, floral designers, or other entrepreneurs, plus faculty and donors who attend the event. In my opinion, this is really what the Aggie community, intergenerational engagement, and connectivity with the local economy and university can really look like. In that middle column, you'll see about student-led initiatives. Last year, a class project launched a new community event in partnership with Destination Bryan and the Brazos Valley Museum of Natural History. It was a bison baby shower at a local ranch. Another engagement is for Spanish-speaking Texas A&M campus tour guides to join a focus group also hosted by Destination Bryan to explore how Spanish speakers currently act with local tourism efforts. Another example that we hope to scale up is from AgriLife Learn, the platform for educational resources from AgriLife Extension. Users can enroll in a variety of courses and certifications to help adult learners change career trajectories and build new skills. The courses can be free and teach science-based life knowledge, ranging from childcare to lawn maintenance. In fact, in prepping for this presentation, I was pleased to learn about the Texas Citizen Planner course, a free online series of classes on community resilience and planning, as well as an introduction into city planning. With the Aplin Center, we can really look to scale all of these engagements with students, the community, and lifelong workforce development.
So we wanted to kind of wrap up this presentation with a summary of some of the key lessons, and hopefully these also kind of jog some questions in the chat. So
Great. Key lesson number one is facilities are important for our universities, but more important is to design ecosystems, not just a building to house those programs. We work really hard to curate an entire ecosystem and plan it holistically, not just find space for programs that needed that. And throughout our planning, we found physical and programmable connections in places and consistencies and overlaps. We have some public spaces that we mentioned, like multiple event spaces, outdoor courtyards, an outdoor barbecue pavilion that can be used for that program as well as many others, tasting rooms that can be used by all the programs together, and labs where they can actually work together and try things in a shared lab space. So providing those spaces for them to actually interact. And then the last way is to really to curate and enable relationships and integration, not just put them in the same building and hope that it happens. We're really activating and planning and designing ways and programs, some of which Kelly mentioned, where multiple programs can work together, and a lot more are in the works, whether it be daytime programs or internship programs or research opportunities and collaborations. Really getting them to connect with each other and reach across their silos and make those connections in the building. The building helps them do it, but we really want to curate it and make sure that it's done the way that this vision is envisioned.
the second cue. Are you go, Austin?
Yeah. Lesson number two is that hospitality and retail are engagement tools. They're engagement tools for the community. That happens a lot, you see, in city planning, and you build a convention center not to make money, but to bring business into the community. You have retail to make hubs to bring business in for other areas and to engage people and to make a subset or a community or a development. Universities don't do that as much. We're really trying to do that in this project, and to have some amenities, and the building footprint really has them as kind of anchors, almost like a mall. You have the visitor center on one corner, retail on another, and the restaurant on another. So those hospitality programs really are the best way for the community to come in and immediately experience the program, as well as then learning to take adult education classes or get integrated through industry or business or in other ways. But the easiest way is to open door through hospitality, through restaurant, through retail. We also want it to be a community destination, as we mentioned multiple times. We have a hard time sometimes. I'm sure many of you feel the same way about getting the community to come on campus. It may seem daunting. They don't know where to go. If it's not a football game day or another major activity, they don't know how to just go and explore. This really gives them a place where they can go check out and say, let's see what's happening at the Aplin Center. And maybe it will be the day that ice cream is available from the classroom, or maybe there's programs that we've activated in one of the public spaces or the event spaces, or they can look at the event calendar and come check it out. Or they can just come and park in the parking garage and walk around and learn something as they walk around, shop, and grab a bite to eat. So we wanted to give all those ways to make it more accessible for visitors to come to campus.
All right, and a third key lesson for particularly our university audience is to measure like an economic developer. Internally, universities can sometimes live and die by looking at their enrollment numbers, graduation rates, student retention percentages, and time to graduation. But successful collaborations with cities and corporate partners outside of a university really need to look at a broader scope to justify ROI beyond students. One graphic that we can drop in to the chat now showing is compiled by our Texas A&M Community Engagement Office. So thank you, team, for pulling together this information to really show what our spending impact is on the great state of Texas. What you're seeing is a look at fiscal year 2022 and 2023 operations and construction and research, plus entrepreneurial activities and the spending of visitors and students. Together, that adds up to $7.7 billion in income to the Texas economy. Wow. When you account for the impact of our former students, of which there are 600,000 former Texas A&M students, the impact leaps to a value approximately equal to $22.3 billion in added income to the Texas economy. Expressed in terms of jobs, Texas A&M's impact as a university supports 1 out of every 83 jobs in Texas. As an employee, as a university affiliated person, I'm really proud to be able to point to these metrics and to see how we lift not just the lives of our students, faculty, and staff, but lift the lives and improve the state of Texas.
So hopefully, everyone, we've really enjoyed sharing this project with you all. We really think that it's really been developed in a unique way and really goes about taking on some of the challenges and benefits that can come from really aligning the educational needs and focus of the university, while at the same time taking advantage of the community interest in the college and ultimately having that enrich not only the academics that are being offered, the industry connections, but also strengthening the bond between the community that the university is in with the university itself. So with that, we'd love to take on some questions.
There was one question from someone who's been patiently waiting, Emily, from your presentation, where you talked about all of the departments that are coming into this building. And so they're wondering, is the Department of Marketing, for example, moving in entirety from Mays? And I think that would be interesting for any of the other departments to know as well.
Yeah, I can speak to that. This building we're treating as it's the showcase. So none of the departments are entirely moving into this space. This building was designed with limited office space, and so every department you see there is teaching elsewhere as well as in here, and their entire department is not moving into this space. This is what we've asked them to bring in as their showcase, as the things that hit this vision that we mentioned, and they can show off what they're doing for marketing, for example, in the Center for Retailing Innovation, and just really focused on the retail space. Or some of the others, Meat Science, we've mentioned multiple times. They have multiple other facilities. They're building a new facility on campus that can do a lot more that they do in meat processing in very interesting areas. And then this is just kind of where we get it to the down to the closer area, getting to hospitality, learning about cuts and seasoning and finishing, and then getting it into retail or into the restaurant. So this is the showcase for all of those programs, not the home for them.
And I will say from the kind of the magic, and I don't know if it was intended, but it definitely was a result of making that decision. I think by keeping the offices out and no one is really moving, so everyone still has their home that they have traditionally had. It really kept it so that the building remained that mission focused and finding those connectors between the spaces. Where I feel like on buildings we design, once your office is in that space, all of a sudden there kind of becomes this territorialism of like, whoa, whoa, but where's my conference room? And and I think Kelly, you could admit we've seen the only offices in the space are from your group, and we've kind of seen a little bit of that. Whoa, where's the bathroom? Where's the and so by keeping the homes where they are, and this really is taking only the impactful parts of their programs that are food and beverage related so that they can work in this pipeline way, has really opened up the building to serve that function and not start to also have to do all of the priorities that might live within one department. And it's also going to allow the building to remain flexible, like we mentioned. Again, once you kind of plant an office, you plant a department head in a building, then it's very difficult, I think you guys all know, to start that domino shuffle of what happens. Now it really, you could see, we haven't tested the theory, but I can envision where, one of these programs moves out or, becomes less of a need than another one. It becomes a much easier process to just architecturally do that as opposed to moving the home of a place.
There's a new question that has popped in, and I think, Austin, I think it would be great if you could take the first pass at this. And the question is, you spoke to this in your presentation, but I'd like to hear more about the most significant obstacles you faced in moving from vision to reality. So you can recap that and maybe some lessons learned there, and two, how you navigated competing priorities such as funding, academic alignment, and stakeholder buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been a challenge, and we had to keep with the original vision to try to get there. So a couple of the largest challenges, and many of you will relate to this, is we started with the vision of this would be a great public-private partnership. And you can see that you could see how this would fit that model. And so we started going with that, and we started a lot of the design under that model as a public-private partnership. And partway through with the leadership change that I mentioned, and then the reevaluation of our board of regents, which is of course important to get things approved. They started questioning that model and really thought, no, this needs to be a flagship for the university. We need to do it to our standards, and we need to kind of hold the strings and make sure it's hitting our priorities. And so that was an absolute challenge at that time. And Emily and her team had to rebid for the project and had to go through some things. So that was an absolute challenge, an absolute risk at that time. It turned out great, and we kept the course. The important thing that we stayed the course with was that we had an overall vision, and it did help to have a large donor on board. That absolutely helped it. As we all know from our universities and our projects, that financial piece, having that locked in and having him in lockstep with us, was absolutely essential to have this still going on and our vision remain the same. And so we were able to keep some key team members on the project and keep it moving forward and keep that vision. But that leadership change was a major challenge, and the other major challenge is making that come to life. And we are in that right now and designing. Like I said, we're going to activate this building. We're not just going to build it and hope that it turns out as intended. And so I'm designing that operationally. So construction's happening, but we're in the middle of the operational design and figuring out how those different 9 departments can be led and can have their input, but also we know which areas are theirs, and we've enlisted one of our teams on campus that deals a lot with special events and public event spaces, so that it's not just departments running it, and we can really think of it as a public space a little bit better. And so our operational challenges, we are still working with those, and we're going to make this work the way we intend it to, but it's not without its challenges. Good question.
Yeah. While we're waiting for other people to either pose questions in the Q&A or the chat, I wanted to circle back, Kelly, and this would be a question for you or Austin, and maybe Emily as part of facilitating this. You had in lesson number 3 that amazing impact slide. And I'm curious, I know that slide was taken from the impact from 22-23 when you started the project. So that's pre-Aplin Center and the legacy you were building on, that culture. I'm wondering, did you set as part of this vision statement any metrics, any goals to say, how would we know we've achieved success? What are we aiming for in an increased, either in students in those traditional metrics or attraction of faculty or research dollars, but what is also the community impact of dollars that are going out to support the community or jobs supported? Was that a discussion at all in terms of the programming or even the pitch to the system for that second phase of support?
Yeah, I could take that. I mean, that was absolutely part of the pitch to the system and how important it is for the university and the community. But as far as goals for these numbers we're looking at, no, we have goals for increasing the capacity of the visitor center, which will then impact this, and for having increasing our capacity in some of the programs. We mentioned hospitality and marketing and food production, and increasing our partnerships with industry. And so those different goals will directly impact these numbers. We didn't set the goals of getting to these numbers. First, we hit the things that we can affect, and then the domino effect will hit these numbers. That's the way I approach that. Kelly, I don't know if you have more to add.
At this stage of the project, I think it's also time to really look, though, at future collaborations. I'm really thrilled that with this particular trade association, the conference coming up in May, many of the local partners, as well as some of the faculty, are going to have opportunity to interconnect, and we can establish new KPIs. But I like what Austin said. In terms of the journey for this project, we put the internal goals for what we can most affect. But now, as we're leaning toward that 2028 opening and then seeing how this will have long-term impact for our community, now is the time to invite in more partners to know more about what we're doing and then be part of the collaboration between the university and community.
Thank you. That's very helpful to really understand how you set your ROIs and then what you're hoping to achieve and essentially what you see as the resultant from that. As we, again, continue to wait, and hopefully everyone by moving their cursor can find the Q&A and ask any questions for any of the panelists or even just general, what would you do differently might be a question that would come up. I would ask is, part of that lesson learned, did you have any freedom to fail? And, what, in the best possible sense, what did you overcome? It's a little bit following up on the previous question, but I think each of you learned something in terms of course correction. And we went down one path we explored, and we found the better path to get to this point now in what is clearly a very exciting future coming up here in the next couple of years.
I'll jump in and then Austin and Kelly add in. But I do feel like just as a general approach to this building, the university has come at it knowing that this is has a lot of first in kind for the university. Even the way that the A&M system that manages the design project or design portion and the construction portion of this project has been set up in a unique way. It's not the same, we're just plugging you into the same system with the same delivery metrics. It's had a different setup, different leaders, different people plugged in, understanding that this is different. So in that sense, I do feel like maybe not freedom to to fail necessarily, but definitely a freedom to explore. And I do think there was still the pressure, as you would want, to course correct quickly. The budget was not going to move. The opening date was not going to move. But if we definitely had some meetings and some engagement approaches with the 9 different colleges, and we would come out of the meeting and Austin and I would go, whoa, I don't know if it was a great idea to have that voice in the room with that voice, and let's rethink this and let's do this meeting again, but with a different approach, with a different audience, and how can we engage those voices, but not in a way that shuts down these others. We did have to, use different tools in our toolbox to kind of get this to the place we needed. And that was we never left one of those meetings that didn't go well. And then no one in the university was going, oh my God, and spinning out of control. It was like, okay, that didn't work. How next week can we, course correct?
That's really helpful to hear. We have some additional great questions that are coming in, so we'll turn to those. And Kelly, in particular, there's a question here on that visitor experience and about tours. You had amazing information about before and the hoped for after that you're looking forward in your life. So as your tours happen Monday to Friday, and the majority of those visitors are, during the weekend, will retail incubators, et cetera, be accessible during the weekends? Is this 7 days a week? How 24/7 is this facility?
From the visitor center perspective, we definitely anticipate expanding services. If a goal of our unit is going to be about hospitality, we want to meet visitors when they are and where they are. And that's likely going to be to expand some of those hours. In terms of other areas like retail, Austin, who's worked with the Center for Retailing Innovation, can maybe speak more to some of their plans for weekend services.
Yeah, those operational decisions. We are treating this less like a classroom building and more like a student union. So we're trying to match the hours of our Memorial Student Center. So that will be weekends. That will be basically 7 to 11. And we're going to try to match their hours with that idea of we want it to be a destination. People can come hang out there, even if there's not tours at the time. Even if classes aren't in session, we want people to be in that building.
And I'll say from the food production side and the experiential labs, I think that was a component that kind of went into how they were selected to be in this building. Much like industry, you don't. If the yeast is coming to fermentation and it happens to be 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, then you're in there at 8 o'clock on a Saturday and going through the production process. So each one of each one of the labs that are in there are not focused only during the school week. They happen pretty regularly, and that's the beauty of having the visibility into those labs. They'll be active all the time.
There's a great follow-on question because Kelly, you mentioned so many interesting events that are already going on the campus and these partnerships, and I was curious about this too. What types of events are you envisioning that would then come to the Aplin Center in particular, that beyond the family units, they're bringing in community members that may not traditionally have ever come to campus if they, hard to believe, are not a football fan or some other athletic event?
Sure. Well, the time now is really for brainstorming. And as Emily pointed out, this building is also intended to be highly flexible. We're going to evolve into this space. In terms of events, I love the grounds outside of the Aplin Center in terms of outdoor event space, a barbecue pavilion. These are going to be new amenities for the university. The location of the Aplin Center is also on West Campus. It's immediately adjacent to a parking garage. It's more accessible from one of our local highways. That physical location, which was very intentional to be in the heart of campus, particularly the heart of campus that's moving more westward, is going to make it also more accessible.
A quick follow-up question to that. I'm envisioning, what kind of operational process will you have to choose the best, most appropriate events? Is it almost like a Shark Tank pitch that will come forward to an assigned group of people, or how do you envision
Start
vetting
bribing
all of
Austin now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're assembling an operational committee that will make those decisions. What should we do on, we talk about football game days a lot, but this is also next to our basketball stadium and our graduation arena and right down the road from baseball and near our gardens. And so it will be when there are large things happening, how do we do that? And then how do we fill that in other times? We will have a hierarchy of building tenants get priority. If we, some of the events from your last question, maybe a wine festival, or harvest time when wine is ready, or with barbecue, or doing things with some of those groups that are in there, we'll get priority over other groups that may just want to use it from the university. And then also, like everybody on this call, we want to try to use it to bring in larger groups that we're pitching. That might be a rotating conference or something like that. That could be at our hotel, which is right across the street from here, and then have programming in here. So it will be making some decisions on priorities, much like a hotel space, and trying to figure out we might want to shoot for the larger conference and then prioritize our tenants in the building and then fill it in with student groups and other things like that. And so it will be a prioritization and looking out for what is the best thing for the facility and the university as a whole.
We've got a couple of quick questions, and hopefully we've got some time for that. So the first one is, how are you visioning growth or partnerships with other similar town-gown land grant institutions and ecosystems, especially considering where you are within the state of Texas itself, as well as the region?
Yeah, I can speak to that. It would be, program specific, and the gateway to that, I think, is the hospitality department, and they've already done a lot. One of our favorite benchmarking visits was going to our friends at Auburn University, and they have a similar facility. They're much more culinary. We have a lot more agriculture, and so some differences there. But I already know our department heads there have connected and met with each other, and I think there's some opportunities there to go visit each other's facilities and do some trading of checking things out there. And I think that will just continue to grow. Once the facility comes online, people will want to come here and want to see and want to learn from it, and then we'll want to send people to other universities. So I think it will be department specific, because there isn't a similar facility to this in the nation that we have found. There's culinary schools, there's agriculture, but there's not like the combination of all of those plus retail. And so I think it'll be department specific. We'll have different coffee groups come in and do things with the coffee team. We'll have different retail groups come in and learn from here. And our retail students already go to New York and all over the world to learn from different retailing areas. And so then we'll bring them and host them here, which we didn't have a good place to host them before because it was academic and not hands-on. So it'll provide that opportunity for trading visits.
That's great. Follow-on question to that is, in addition to these partners, in what ways, either in the past or going forward, are you incorporating community voice into your planning process?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a community development team that helps and advises us in a lot of areas. And then also we have a couple programs that are connected to the colleges. One of them, so we have a College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, and then we have they have a agency arm called our AgriLife, and they actually work out in every county, I believe, in the state, and do training and do things like that. So they will be our adult education component that work to bring people in to use these when these areas aren't in use by classrooms, to come in and connect with them. So they'll really be our arm to activate that community engagement side, as well as through our cities, our partners at Bryan and College Station.
We'll also benefit that many of the academic departments that are affiliated with the Aplin Center all have corporate advisory boards. So with their active engagement and looking at the Aplin Center as a pipeline to talent, we'll take their recommendations also for how we can continue to evolve the facility for that workforce readiness goal.
That's great. Maybe you already answered it, but if just one quick follow-on question. Are you looking at other states, but beyond just the higher ed land grants? Are other states interested in what you're doing?
Not Yeah, not yet. We've done some benchmarking and connecting with higher ed, but we have not branched out into other states. And we really think a lot of this, we've been in the project and we just did groundbreaking and really released plans in October. As this grows and as more people find out about this, and once the building's open and then people start visiting, then that will grow. But we don't have those connections yet.
Okay. Well, I know we have one unanswered question about building a bridge across Wellborn, someone who clearly knows the campus well as the ultimate connectivity that could happen between West and East.
Emily can speak to that. We did lots of studies on both a bridge and a tunnel connecting those two. And
bridge functionally wasn't a good option and very cost prohibitive. We actually got pretty far along in design and carrying the tunnel, another tunnel access, because there are two tunnel or one large tunnel that kind of takes you under Wellborn now. But we did look at, especially John Kimbrough. I think that's where we kind of lose that connection, and it can be a tricky place to cross. But ultimately still too cost prohibitive as we carried it on. And I think the university is already in the middle of making a lot of adjustments to the circulation and how they're driving both pedestrian and car traffic through the university, and trying to de-emphasize Kimbrough a lot there. And so ultimately they decided, at least for now, that they're going to continue to pursue those, but it was considered because unfortunately it is a highly active area with a lot of different types of circulation happening, and including a train. So
Well, we'll end on that question. We've gone very global down to very specific. I've had a lot of fun with you all on the panel this hour, and hopefully our webinar attendees feel the same way. I think, do you have the final slide if you want to just provide your contact information?
We'll add that slide, Chris Ann, when before we send it, and we'll share this presentation with everyone on it, and we'll make sure we add that before it's sent out.
Yes, ITGA will definitely make that available on the website. I want to thank again you all for your generous use of your time preparing for this and delivering it. You've got so much information, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of follow-up. I want to let everybody know, if you're not aware, if you're still here as an attendee, that again, this group will be at the ITGA conference that's coming up very quickly, May 19th to the 22nd, hosted by College Station and A&M. And if you want to attend and do in-person exercises and really brainstorm this more deeply, feel free to either attend that session, or you'll probably see these folks walking around in the corridor. So thank you for being part of the ITGA community. And we look forward to seeing you at A&M and other webinars in the future. And again, thank you so much, Emily, Kelly, and Austin. So appreciate your time and efforts.
Thank you,
everyone.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being here.